Good morning, everyone, and shout out to my Cerebral Lights. It is she, the Cerebral Diva, and she is back and officially in the building with a brand new video for your listening and your viewing pleasures. That is pleasure times 2, boo-boo. Now, how could you go wrong with that? Having said that, before we dive into this video, I need you all to do me a huge tax-free, cost-free favor, and that is to like, comment, subscribe, and share. And also remember to turn on your notification bell so that you are updated and notified each and every time I upload a video. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's talk about what we're really here to talk about, right? Let's get our hands a little bit dirty. Put the hand sanitizer down, because I'm telling you, this is, it's about to get messy around here. We're going to talk about season 12 of Married at First Sight. Now, I haven't been watching Basketball Wives, haven't been watching The Real Housewives of Atlanta, but I have been a tried and true watcher of Married at First Sight. Not just season 12, ever since season 1. But season 12 is a whole other beast. It is a whole other beast. Now, while there are 5 couples on this show in total, there's really only one couple that I'm interested in talking about, and that is, you guessed it, Paige and Chris. Goodness gracious, good golly, Miss Molly. Where do I start? Where do I start with them? I suppose I'll start at the beginning. And let me say this too. I'm so happy because, believe it or not, I recorded this video probably about 2 weeks ago. And I'm going to be completely transparent in saying 2 weeks ago, my opinion of Paige is completely different from what it is today, right? And I'm really glad that I waited to make this video, because it gave me some time for introspection. It gave me some time to sort of think outside of, my normal process, and really come up with a different understanding, a more holistic understanding of Paige, and maybe why she's making some of the choices that she's making. So I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, so let's take it back a little bit, right? So for those of you who are familiar with the show, then you already know the premise. 2 strangers get married. They have absolutely no clue what the person looks like. They have no history. They're just complete and total strangers in every way imaginable. So Paige and Chris, a young African-American couple. Paige, who is absolutely stunning, darker complexion, just beautiful in every way, beautiful smile, beautiful spirit, just her aura in general is just good, pure, wholesome, kind, gentle, everything that you would think a man would want. So she's matched up with Chris, who is from Chicago. Shout out to Chicago, by the way. Shout out to all my Italian beef lovers. So Chris is from Chicago, my hometown, believe it or not. And he's just rough around the edges, to say the least. I'm going to be a little less genteel when it relates to Chris, just because I don't think that he deserves empathy. I don't think that he deserves a benefit of the doubt. I just think that he's just an unkind person, and I'm trying to choose my words carefully here, but if I take the gloves off at some point, just be prepared that might happen. Excuse me. So the two of them are paired together. Even before they get married, I'm just really bothered by the narrative that's being created around Paige and what she looks like. There's this whole narrative about her not being attractive that really bothered me as a woman of color. I'll admit that I was just like, I was really side-eyeing production, when they kept going back to this montage of Chris basically saying, that, she needs to be beautiful and she needs to be this, and, it was just very superficial in terms of what he was concerned about. I didn't hear him mention intelligent. I didn't hear him mention kind. I didn't hear him mention career-oriented. The only thing that he was focused on was what she looked like, which for me was an immediate red flag. Now, not only was he an idiot, but he was the offspring of an idiot, because his dad too was probably just, I don't know, just stereotypical Chicago. You know what I mean? Just, I don't know, they just make me embarrassed sometimes. So the dad is basically sizing Paige up before the two of them are even married. She has to be beautiful. Now, meanwhile, he's built like a boiled egg. And He's talking about what Paige needs to look like. That the audacity of that just blows my mind. How sometimes men can be on a quest for this trophy and feel like they don't have to do anything in the way of self-improvement themselves. Like, dude, you look like a boiled egg with a Steve Harvey suit on, and you're talking about what this girl needs to look like. I'm gonna need you to cut that out right now. So the dad was sizing her up, talking about her body, high-fiving his son. It was just like, you know what I mean? This is the dog and this is the puppy. That's how I looked at them as father and son. Like, you know what I mean? It just, you knew that if this was the person who was responsible for rearing Chris, this is the person who was responsible for teaching him how a man behaves and how a man conducts himself, you knew Paige was in trouble right out the bat. Now here they are, about to get married, and again they're creating this whole narrative around whether or not she's attractive, and she walks through the threshold and she's about to walk down the aisle, and you can see his face shift when he sees her, and it shifts to a look of displeasure or dissatisfaction when he sees who she is. And she's a beautiful dark-skinned woman. I'm not sure if that was the issue, but again, that's kind of what bothered me about that whole narrative that was being created, that as if dark is not beautiful. So anyhow, as I'm watching and saying, well, if he doesn't find her attractive, no one's holding a gun to your head, right? I realize that you're on a TV show, what have you, but at this point, if she walks down that aisle and this is not what you want, and you're not okay with it, at that point you have every right to say, hey, my bad, I was just playing. This is, I'm not going to go through with this. You have every right to do that. But why go through it if your intentions are not true, if your intentions are not pure, if your intentions are not genuine? I do not understand that. But he goes through with it. And during the wedding, they're sitting at the reception table, and he's asking her all of these superficial questions like, are you a freak? Am I a freak? Now, there were so many times that I just wanted to, how you see one of your friends fighting and they're getting beat up and you want to pull them out of the fight and then fight on their behalf. This is sort of how I felt watching this show. Like, I just wanted to jump into Paige's body and just tell him what he needed to hear. And that was, who are you talking to? At some point I just wanted her to draw a firm line in the sand about who you are as a woman. Have your constitution established before you even consider getting married. But that didn't happen. She went through, she's sort of indulging this conversation about whether or not she's a freak and whether or not she's hypersexual, and all of these questions that he's asking, questions that I'll admit, over the course of my experience with Married at First Sight, I'd never seen a guy who was really that focused on physical intimacy. So anyhow, they get married, they go through the nuptials, and prior to that, let me just jump back a little bit. He goes and has a meeting with their friends after they get married, with her friends, excuse me, and he's talking to them about his ex-girlfriend. He's even talking to Paige, his new wife, about his ex-girlfriend and telling her that they broke up a month or so ago. And all of these things are red flags to me. All of these things were things for me that would have said, slow down, don't move too fast. At the very least, for me, they would have said run, do not walk. But at the very least, they would have said to me, okay, you need to be guarded in this situation, because there are some things here that are definitely have the potential to harm you long term, right? But Paige came to be married, and so a lot of those red flags, she just, she put her blinders on and pretended that she didn't see them. So they get married, they have sex on the first night. I'm just like, Paige, why? They have sex on the first night, and I don't care about being married at first sight. You were still a stranger. You know what I mean? You were still a stranger. I don't care about that title of husband. People put too much emphasis on that word husband, as if that suddenly changes a person's character or their makeup. If you were a dog as a man, you'll be a dog as a husband. It's not like you just exchange nuptials and then something changes. I'm sorry, I just don't buy into that belief or that fallacy. Who you are is who you will be. Amen. And so she has sex with him on the first night, and then they honeymoon in Vegas. And things just go awry from there. You know, you find out during the honeymoon that there is a baby on the way. You know, there's this whole thing with production and everyone surrounding Chris and essentially telling him that he needs to have a conversation with Paige and tell her what's going on because she's unaware that there's a child, according to Chris's ex-girlfriend, the same one he was talking about during their wedding. And before they even talked about the issue, I'm like, this man has a baby on the way. Didn't surprise me at all because I know that type. I know that type. I know that type. We all know that type, right? And so even though she finds out that he has a baby on the way, she decides that she still wants to work through it. Now, the killer part for me was not that she decided to work through it. The killer part for me was that he suddenly became the victim. You know, he's suddenly the person who is upset and feels like, you know, people aren't understanding his plight. And, you know, it's just like, are you crazy? Like, this is her moment. If anyone needs to be nurtured, if anyone needs to be made to feel important, all of the energy should be focused on Paige. But Chris was unable to do that. So Paige, in turn, is coddling him. And I'm just like, oh my God, like, it's just making me... You know, at one point, I admit that I remember just thinking, she is so dumb. She is so stupid. That was my visceral response to watching what was happening in front of me. But when I really stopped to think about it, she's not dumb. She's kind and she's naive. And I realized what we were watching in real time is the creation of the quote-unquote angry black woman. This is how the angry black woman is created. And what I want people to understand is that black women aren't angry. We're just sick of your Can I get an amen? I'm not angry. I'm happy. I'm ebullient. I'm thankful. You know, I wake up with a smile on my face. I'm not unhappy. I'm just sick of your That's really the bottom line. And when I get sick of your and when I know who I am as a woman, and when I get a voice and I'm able to speak up for myself and articulate the things that I will accept and will not accept, then suddenly I become an angry black woman. And the way you become a quote-unquote angry black woman, but I'm going to change that to a fed-up black woman. The way you become a fed-up black woman is you deal with men like Chris. Now, how are you supposed to survive being kind and gentle and understanding and compassionate and empathetic with a person like that? How are you supposed to exist in that when you're dealing with a narcissist, when you're dealing with a person who is solely focused on their self-preservation and their well-being? At some point, your own has to kick in, right? And it doesn't mean that you lose that innate goodness. It's still there. But you just learn to reserve it for those who are deserving of it and not to feed it to dogs. And not to feed it to dogs. I'm just saying, listen, we're going to have a real conversation about this. So she finds out that there's a baby on the way. And then he's telling her he doesn't find her attractive. And then he goes back and he tells her that, you know, she's going to be first because he puts God first. And let me tell you something, people. Now, if you've been on my channel for a while, you know that I'm not a religious person. And I don't want to disrespect anyone's religious beliefs. I'm just not religious, right? I do believe in a higher power, but I also believe in my power, right? I believe that I am responsible for my choices. I am responsible for my advances. I am responsible for my setbacks. I don't put that off on an entity outside of me. I am wholly culpable for the choices and decisions that I make. I'll let that settle in for a minute. So if you believe in God, like for me, one of the things that I hate, you know, because people have given Jesus a bad name. They've given Jesus a bad name. You know, Jesus needs a public relations manager because these people out here are really tarnishing his brand. And so when I hear a man say, I'm God-fearing, that's pretty much my response. You're God-fearing. What? What does that mean? What does that mean? God fearing. Listen, I don't need you to be God fearing. What I need you to be is have a healthy fear of me. Fear me. What I need you to do is be a man of integrity. I need you to be a lie fearing man. I need you to be dishonesty fearing. That's what I need you to fear, right? So all of this God fearing malarkey, like, people are always quick to align themselves with God as if that somehow makes them more righteous. And it's just like, no, it doesn't, because I don't care how some of the biggest dogs in the world are sitting in the pews at church. Now, I'm just going to keep it real. Do not be offended, because I'm not talking about God. I'm talking about people who use God to push their own agenda and use God to manipulate people into doing what they want them to do, into being compliant. So the God-fearing thing for me is really just off-putting. It's just like, I need you to just be rooted in honesty. Like, come to me and say to me, hey, I'm a liar, I'm a cheater, I don't have a job, I really don't know where I'm going in life. I'm out here floating. I'm out here floating. But when I'm around you, I feel inspired. I feel different. I want to do things. I want to grow. I want to be a better person. And I might have challenges in being a better person, but I'm asking you to go on this journey with me. And if at any time in this journey you feel like it's not a journey that you want to go on or be on, or if any time on this journey I feel like my lack of or my issues are impacting you to a degree that is problematic, let's have that conversation and figure out what our next steps are. Tell me that, and give me an opportunity to say, okay, I'm okay with that, or hey, I'm not okay with that, but we can still be friends. But don't send in your representative talking all this stuff about being God-fearing when you know that you're just a dog, when you know that you're a work in progress. Tell me that. Tell me that. And I feel so bad for Paige, just because, like I said, I was really judging her earlier, but I realized that she's just young and she hasn't had these experiences yet, and she doesn't really understand the full power of her womanness. And when she does, she will know that men like Chris do not deserve the time. Boys like Chris, because you know what? I'm not going to even call him a man. We're going to call him a boy. He is a man-child. While he is of age, you can just tell by his disposition, his energy, that he's in the stage of arrested development. There's still a lot of growth that needs to happen. So at this point, he's told her he doesn't find her attractive. We're going to count down the red flags. He's told her that he doesn't find her attractive. They've had sex on the first night. There's a baby on the way. And then he's gotten physically violent or attempted to get physically violent with the other castmates who were essentially supporting Paige. So we have all four of those red flags. So they finally make a commitment to try to work things out, because he's God-fearing. And they are on their way back to Atlanta after the honeymoon. And he decides to go back to Chicago and lets Paige go back to Atlanta by herself. And she moves into the mutual apartment that's provided by the show. And I'm just like, man, Paige, don't do it. At some point, just for the sake of having some of your pride, having some of your backbone intact when you walk away from this, I wanted her to just say, look, I'm good. Don't need this. Don't have time for it. I will not be made a fool of on national TV. That just won't happen. In the words of Iyanla Vanzant, not on my watch. But she moved in, her and her dog. I'm not laughing at Paige in particular. I'm just laughing at how sad it was to watch. So she moves in. Chris doesn't show up. Pastor Kyle comes over. He's asking her all sorts of questions about the relationship. And basically he's saying, look, normally I'm a champion for relationships, but in this particular instance, homegirl, you need to run. And he asked her at one point, does she want to work things out? And she hesitates. Now, Chris, keep in mind, has already asked her for a divorce. And you're hesitating when Pastor Kyle asks you whether or not you want to move forward with it. And I just didn't understand why she didn't just say yes. But anyhow, Chris shows up and he starts giving these half-assed answers to Pastor Kyle. And, Pastor Kyle was essentially asking him all the questions that I wanted to ask. Like, if you and this particular baby mother broke up, then what makes you think that a child is going to fix this? And he's like, I don't want another man raising my child. Well, there's a 99% probability that there's going to be another man involved in this woman's life at some point, because the two of you are not going to work. It's just not. And why would you want to bring a child into a dysfunctional relationship just to create another you? And again, that's how that pathology that was passed from Chris's father to him becomes a generational curse. It becomes a generational curse because no one has the awareness. No one is astute enough to really take a look outside of themselves and start asking themselves those tough, introspective questions about how to be better as a person. So, Pastor Kyle basically leaves them in shambles and it's just like, look, y'all figure this out. I gotta go. This is just, it's too much mug, too much mire. I gotta pray. I need to pray. Pastor Kyle's like, I need to pray because this is just entirely too much. So he walks out, he leaves the two of them, and Chris leans into Paige. Now, watch his body language too. If you guys watch the episode, watch how he leans away from her on the sofa. Pay attention to body language. It's so important. But after Pastor Kyle leaves, he leans into her and basically whispers in her ear. And it's not audible, so we can't hear what he says. But Paige later comes on camera in one of her confessionals and tells her that he says that he's afraid of falling in love with her. I'm like, this dude is a mess. And it's sad because you see in that moment that all Chris had to do was say, I'm ready to come home. I want to work things out. And she would have welcomed him with open arms. But instead, he asks her where his things are. She walks him down to the garage in the building. He goes to the car, gets his things out of her car and puts them in his car and drives off. And leaves her standing in the doorway of the parking ramp, watching him drive off. And it's really sad to watch, if I'm being completely honest. I just want to sit Paige down and have a big sister conversation with her, grab her by her shoulders and shake her and say, girl, wake up. Wake up. This dude is garbage. He is garbage and you deserve so much better. And not only do you deserve so much better, you will have so much better. Now, this is the problem with women, right? Because a lot of times as women, we can talk the talk, but we cannot walk the walk. And by that, I mean, when like women will say, oh, I know I'm bad, or I know I could get this, I'll have, we go all Beyonce, I'll have another you in a minute. But then we're afraid to pull that trigger. You know what I mean? We second guess on pulling that trigger. Pull it. Pull the trigger. Pull it. Pull it. At some point, you have to start looking out for your own best interest. The moment you realize that you cannot trust another person to do it, it is incumbent upon you to make sure that you are okay. So I really hope that at some point the lights come on for Paige. In the interim, I'm going to really try my hardest not to be critical of her because she's young. And I'm telling you, as she grows and has these relationships, this relationship will definitely change her relationship DNA moving forward. She will never be the woman she was before this relationship after it. She just won't. She won't. And men who are watching this show, I think it's very important if you're a man or a woman raising a son to watch the show and have these conversations, especially if they're at that dating age. Have these conversations about how to treat not just women but people in general. You know what I mean? This toxic masculinity, of treating women as if they're trophies, and treating women's emotions as if they're of no meaning. It needs to stop. And I think that people really need to watch the show and understand that angry black women aren't born. They are created by dysfunctional black men or dysfunctional men. And I do want to say this also, right? This behavior displayed by Chris is not something that is indicative solely of black men, right? This is, it crosses the racial spectrum. You can be an a-hole, you can be a dog of any race, of any creed, So while I'm talking about an African American couple, so in the context of that, I'm referring to black men because I date black men. I'm speaking from that point of view. But a dog is a dog, and so be aware that dogs are out there, and don't think that just by choosing a white man, an Asian man, an Indian man, that suddenly you don't have those issues to worry about, because you will. Okay. Having said that, you guys, I think that's enough. Definitely watch next week's episode. I'll definitely be back to talk to you guys a little bit more about it. It's just been a really, really interesting season for me, so I have lots to say. Before we go, again, please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and also remember to click that notification bell. As always, in closing, remember to live better, love harder, and think smarter. It is she, the Cerebral Diva, and I will talk to you guys again in my next video. Have a great day and stay safe.